वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Chapter 3, verse 23. यदि ह्यहं न वर्तेयं जातु कर्मण्यतन्द्रितः मम वर्त्मानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः.
If I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Parth, certainly all men would follow my path.
उत्सीदेयुरिमे लोका न कुर्यां कर्म चेदहं शङ्करस्य च कर्तास्याम् उपहन्यामि मा प्रजा.
If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings.
सक्ताः कर्मण्य विद्वांसो यथा कुर्वन्ति भारत कुर्याद् विद्वांस्तथा सक्तः चकीर्षुर्लोकसङ्ग्रहम्.
As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned men similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path.
Verse 26. न बुद्धिभेदं जनयेत् अज्ञानां कर्म संगिनां जोषयेत् सर्वकर्माणि विद्वान् युक्तः समाचरन्.
So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness.
27. प्रकृते क्रियमाणानि गुणैः कर्माणि सर्वशः अहंकार विमूढात्मा कर्ताहमिति मन्यते.
The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are actually carried out by the three modes of material nature.
28. तत्त्ववित्तु महाबाहो गुणकर्म विभागयो गुणागुणेषु वर्तन्ता इति मत्वा न सज्जते.
One who is in the knowledge of the absolute truth, who might be armed, does not engage himself in the sense and sense gratification, knowing well the difference between work in devotion and work for fruitive results.
29. प्रकृतेर्गुणसम्मूढा सज्जन्ते गुणकर्मसु तान् कृत्स्नविदो मन्दान् कृत्स्नविन्न विजालयेत्.
Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge.
30. मयि सर्वाणि कर्माणि सन्न्यस्याध्यात्मचेतसा निराशीर्निर्ममो भूत्वा युध्यस्व विगतज्वरः.
Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight.
31. ये मे मतमिदं नित्यम् अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवा श्रद्धावन्तो न सूयन्तो मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः.
Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow their teachings faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions.
32. ये त्वेतदभ्यसूयन्तो नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मतम् सर्वज्ञानविमूढांस्तान् विद्धि नष्टान चेतसः.
But those who out of envy discharge their teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, be fooled and ruined in their endeavor for perfection.
33. सदृशं चेष्टते स्वस्याः प्रकृतेर्ज्ञानवानपि प्रकृतिं यान्ति भूतानि निग्रहः किं करिष्यति.
Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish?
34. इन्द्रियस्येन्द्रियस्यार्थे रागद्वेषौ व्यवस्थितौ तयोर्न वशमागच्छेत् तौ ह्यस्य परिपन्तिनौ.
There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their object. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization.
35. श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुणः परधर्मात् स्वनुष्ठितात् स्वधर्मे निधनं श्रेयः परधर्मो भयावहः.
It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faulty, than another's duty perfectly. Distractions in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous.
36. अर्जुन उवाच अथ केन प्रयुक्तोऽयं पापं चरति पूरुषः अनिच्छन्नपि वार्ष्णेय बलादिव नियोजितः.
Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force?
37. श्री भगवानुवाच काम एष क्रोध एषः रजो गुणसमुद्भवः महाशनो महापाप्मा विद्येनमिह वैरिणम्.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transferred into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world.
38. धूमेनाव्रियते वह्निः यथादर्शो मलेन च यतोल्बेनावृतो गर्भः तथा तेनेदमावृतम्.
As fire is covered by smoke, as the mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust.
39. आवृतं ज्ञानमेतेन ज्ञानिनो नित्यवैरिणा कामरूपेण कौन्तेय दुष्पूरेणानलेन च.
Thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness become covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. 40.
इन्द्रियाणि मनोबुद्धिः अस्याधिष्ठानमुच्यते एतैर्विमोहयत्येषा ज्ञानमावृत्य देहिनम्.
The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting place of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge and the living entity and bewilders him.
41. तस्मात्त्वमिन्द्रियाण्यादौ नियम्य भरतर्षभा पाप्मानं प्रजहीह्येनं ज्ञानविज्ञाननाशनम्.
Therefore, O Arjun, just be the best of the Bharatas. In the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization.
42. Indriyani paranyahuhu indriyebhyah param manaha manasastu para buddhihi yo buddhe paratastu saha.
The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence.
43. Evam buddhe param buddhva samstabhyatmanamatmana jahi shatrum mahabhaho kamarupam durasadam.
Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty arm Arjun, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. Hare Krishna. Please forgive my mistakes.
No, thank you so much. It is wonderful. Geeta Mataji, your Sanskrit is, you South Indian?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, it's got that, that tone, and it's beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you, Seema Mataji, for your English.
Thank you so much,
Wonderful.
Mataji. I hope you will give me another opportunity. Thank you.
I was just going to say, I hope you will recite again, because it just that South Indian tone sounded so wonderful, different. Very
Okay,
nice.
thank you, Mataji.
Yes,
All
it was
glories
very
to
melodious.
Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so just give me 1 second while I get my screen up. Okay, you all can see now. Yeah, can everybody see?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
yes.
you. Thank you. Okay, so we are continuing chapter 3, entitled Karma Yoga. And today we are doing verse 24. So we'll just recite the verse and translation and purport. Utsideyurime loka na kuryam karma chedaham sankarasya chakartasyam upahanyam ima prajaha. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to domination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. Does anybody want to read the purport?
Can I, Mataji, please?
Yes, Smithali Mataji, please go ahead.
Thanks.
Sorry, we can't hear anything. Was it, who was going to read the purport? Was it Mithali Mataji?
Mataji, I was in me. Okay. Sorry, thank you, Hare Krishna.
No problem.
Varna Shankara is unwanted population which disturbs the peace of the general society. In order to check this social disturbance, there are prescribed rules and regulations by which the population can automatically become peaceful and organized for spiritual progress in life. When Lord Krishna descends, naturally he deals with such rules and regulations in order to maintain the prestige and necessity of such important performances. The Lord is the father of all living entities, and if the living entities are misguided, indirectly the responsibility goes to the Lord. Therefore, whenever there is a general disregard of regulatory principles, the Lord himself descends and corrects the society. We should, however, note carefully that although we have to follow in the footsteps of the Lord, we still have to remember that we cannot imitate him. Following and imitating are not on the same level. We cannot imitate the Lord by lifting Govardhana hill, as the Lord did in his childhood. It is impossible for any human being. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wants to read the next page, please? Nobody? Then in that case, I will read. Where was I? We have to follow his instructions, but we may not imitate him at any time. The Srimad Bhagavatam 10.33, 30 and 31 affirms, Naityat samarachet jatu manasapi hi anishvaraha vinashyati acharan modyat yatha rudrobdhi jam visham ishvaranam vacha satyam tathaiva charitam kvachet tesham yatsva vacho yuktam buddhimam stat samacharet. One should simply follow the instructions of the Lord and his empowered servants. Their instructions are all good for us, and any intelligent person will perform them as instructed. However, one should guard against trying to imitate their actions. One should not try to drink the ocean of poison in imitation of Lord Shiva. We should always consider the position of the Ishvaras, or those who can actually control the movements of the sun and moon, as superior. Without such power, one cannot imitate the Ishvaras, who are super powerful. Lord Shiva drank poison to the extent of swallowing an ocean. But if any common man tries to drink even a fragment of such poison, he will be killed. There are many pseudo devotees of Lord Shiva who want to indulge in smoking ganja and similar intoxicating drugs, forgetting that by so imitating the acts of Lord Shiva, they are calling death very near. Similarly, there are some pseudo devotees of Lord Krishna who prefer to imitate the Lord in his Rasa Leela or dance of love, forgetting their inability to lift Govardhan hill. It is best, therefore, that one not try to imitate the powerful, but simply follow their instructions, nor should one try to occupy their post without qualification. There are so many incarnations of God without the power of the Supreme Godhead. Before we continue, we'll just recite our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. All right, so we've seen in the past few verses that in this chapter, Krishna has been describing, how a self-realized person who reaches that stage is not obliged to perform any prescribed duties, but he still continues to do so in order to set an example for the common man to follow. And in the past few verses, Krishna is actually giving his own example that how he also, when he appears in this human form, when he appears in this material world, he also performs the various duties which is expected of, you know, a normal human being. He comes as a grihastha, and we've been seeing in the past couple of verses that he is performing all the activities that a grihastha should be performing. And in this particular verse, he's stating that he's doing this because otherwise, if he doesn't follow and he doesn't perform the duties, then there will be chaos. So in the purport, Prabhupada is talking about Varna Shankara. So, you know, he says Shankarsha, that is the word he uses in the verse. It says here that Shankarsha Chakartasyam. So the translation for Sankarsha Prabhupada is given is of unwanted population. So it says, I would be the cause of creating unwanted population. Now, previously, if we all remember when we were discussing chapter 1, and when Arjuna said, you know, he was stating various reasons why he does not want to fight. So if you remember, when he was giving all these various reasons why he does not want to fight, one of the reasons he said was that if he fights, then, see, you remember Arjuna was distressed. He said he does not want to fight. He was giving various reasons. And one of the reasons that he gave, as we can see in verse 1.40, he says that when irreligion is prominent in the family of Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood or descendant of Vrishni comes unwanted progeny, Varna Shankaraha. So this is a set of verses where Arjuna is trying to actually explain to Krishna, justify why he should not fight this war. I'm sure you all remember this. We had discussed this at length of, you know, the various reasons why Arjuna said that he should not fight this war. And interestingly here, Krishna is going to actually use this same logic and explain to Arjuna, in fact, that if you don't perform your prescribed duties and if you don't fight this war, then there will be unwanted progeny. You see how Krishna is so clever that he is using the same excuses that Arjuna was giving, and he's trying to corner Arjuna and, you know, explain to him why fighting this war is so important. So why is Krishna saying that if you don't fight, there will be unwanted progeny, right? Oh, sorry. So, hold on 1 second. Yeah. So why is Krishna saying this, that if you don't fight, there will be unwanted progeny? The reason is that Arjuna is a leader among men, right? Yeah. So Arjuna is a leader amongst men. And as we have seen in the previous verse 3.21, that whatever a great leader or great man does, the common man will follow. If Arjuna refuses to perform his prescribed duties, which as a Kshatriya, his duty is to fight the war. If he refuses to perform his prescribed duties, then the common man will also do the same. And if the duties are not performed, then as we know, we have been listening and reading that by performance of prescribed duties, one can purify oneself and reach the stage where then one starts, you know, his spiritual journey. So if people are not performing their prescribed duties, then that society will get completely degraded, right? And then the second reason is that this battle of Kurukshetra is actually a battle between dharma and adharma. Arjuna is fighting on the side of dharma. Krishna wants him to fight this battle because he wants to annihilate all the people who are not following the dharma. There is a lot of adharma, and that is why Krishna actually has orchestrated this whole battle so that, you know, all of these adharmic people can be annihilated. So if Arjuna does not fight this battle, then obviously adharma will prevail And when adharma will prevail, then there will be unwanted progeny or unwanted population. So that is why Krishna is actually encouraging Arjuna and giving him reasons why he should fight this battle. In quite a few lectures, Srila Prabhupada actually says that where there is unwanted population, then there is famine, war, and pestilence. Pestilence is what we are actually experiencing now. There is epidemics, there is various kinds of illnesses, and we can see in today's world, there is constant some or the other problems that we are facing. We all know, of course, there are different, Adi Daivika, Adi Bhautika, Adhyatmika. There's all these three material miseries that a person faces all the time. But as Prabhupada points out, that when there is unwanted population, then these three mainly, the famine, war, and this epidemics are very common. And we can see all of that in our current world today. So I was listening to a class and there was this very interesting discussion. After a very sad incident that happened, we'll not go into that, but there was a discussion on a TV channel, and the interviewer asked one guest who was a religious personality. He asked this guest that, why is God allowing all these things to happen? Isn't it true that when things go wrong in our lives, the first thing we do is we blame God? Why is God allowing this to happen? When things are going right, we forget. We forget that it is the same God. It is, God because of whom this is happening. But when things go wrong, it's very easy for us to blame. I think it's human nature that, even if we don't bring God into the picture, it's human nature that as soon as something goes wrong, we always find somebody else to blame for the mistake. We never look at what we've done wrong, So we are blaming, we are asking like, why is God allowing this to happen? The problem is that we have actually removed God from our lives completely. He's no longer a part of our education system. He's no longer a part of the government. He's no longer a part of our personal lives. We hardly think of God anytime. We've removed God completely from our lives. So what do we expect then? If we are not going to have God as the center of our lives, then what is going to happen? Simple analogy, that even if we want life insurance, we have to pay the premium for the life insurance every month. Isn't it true that we have to pay something to get something in return? Now we are not saying that Krishna is the eternal father, but that does not mean that the child is turned away from the father and has shown the back to the father, and even though constantly being reminded and tapped on the shoulder, does not want to turn back at all. What can one do under such circumstances? Krishna says very clearly in the verse 9.22, he says, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paripashate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yoga shemam vahamyaham. That for those who are devoted to me, I carry what they lack and I give them what they have. So he is willing to be in our lives. He is willing to give us what we want. But if we turn away our backs, then if we turn away ourselves, then what can he do? He also promises, he says, sarva dharman paritajya mam ekam sharanam raja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshesami masucha. He's saying, I will relieve you of all your sinful activities, but at least turn to me. You see? So we are talking about Varna Shankara, and the reason why Varna Shankara or unwanted progeny is happening is because we are not turning to Krishna. We are not involving God in our lives at all. There are no samskaras which we are following. Nobody is following the Varnashram system. Nobody is following the rules and regulations. And thus, this is happening. And where there is Varna Shankara, there is going to be disturbances. But anyways, talking about this particular verse here, Krishna is trying to encourage Arjuna, saying that if you do not fight, then definitely there will be Varna Shankara, right? Okay, then continuing on in the purport, Prabhupada is many times he's referred to saying that we cannot imitate Krishna, we can only follow him. And just to get a clear understanding of this, there are some times when Krishna performs activities which are against dharma, which actually don't follow the rules of the dharma, so to say. And we've got examples of that in the Mahabharata. As we all know, you remember in the Mahabharata, Krishna had promised that he will not lift any weapon and he will not fight. But when it came on the day when he saw his devotee Arjuna was suffering, and there was no way that he was going to be able to counterattack Bhishma Dev, at that time, Krishna picked up the chariot wheel and he raced towards Bhishma to harm him. As you can see from the picture, it was Arjuna who was holding him back so that Krishna does not break his promise. Obviously, there are other hidden reasons why this is happening. But when we are just looking at it from understanding just this verse, we can see that Krishna actually is going against his dharma, where he had made the promise, but he's breaking his promise. We will look into the reasons in a bit, because there are specific reasons why he does what he does. But we look into that in just one moment. We look at another activity that Krishna performs, which actually goes against the dharma. The Rasa Leela, where he's performing rasa dance, with the wives of the other gopas. And I know Mukundhari Prabhu touched upon this subject a little bit, So obviously, there are reasons why he does that, but we cannot imitate it. Let us just look at the reasons why Krishna does these activities or performs these activities. So the reasons why he does this is, the first most important reason is to please his devotees. You see, when Krishna picks up the chariot wheel and goes to fight or kill Bhishma Dev, there are a number of reasons why he's doing that. One of the most important thing is that the rasa or the relationship that Bhishma Dev has with Krishna is that of the Veer Ras, wherein Krishna enjoys having fight with his devotees. He cannot do that in the spiritual world, but he enjoys having this kind of rasa, and that is the relation that he has with Bhishma Dev. So in order to please his devotee, in order to also get happiness from doing this, that's one reason why he picks up the chariot wheel. The second reason actually is that Bhishma Dev, although a great devotee of the Lord, was fighting against the Lord. He was on the side of adharma. He was on the side of the Kauravas. And Krishna wanted to show, no matter how great you may be, but if you are on the side of adharma, then you will fail. You see? He also wanted to show the world that he gave a very good chance to the Kauravas to win. The Kauravas could not turn around and say that we didn't have the best warriors in our team or in our side, So there are so many reasons why Krishna is doing this. He performs the rasa dance because, before that, also another thing. Krishna, for him, pleasing his devotees comes even more higher than his reputation. All of us think, what do people think if I do something like this? People will say things about me. They might criticize me. Krishna, not for a second, considered that, because all he cared for was to please his devotees. And he knew that, Arjuna was in the situation where if he didn't do anything to help Arjuna, then, his friend would suffer. So there are so many different reasons. He performs the rasa dance because the gopis are the highest, the purest devotees of the Lord. As we know, in previous life, the gopis were sages who performed so many austerities, in order to, in this life, get association of the Lord. And Krishna is performing this rasa dance to please the desires of the most advanced devotees. And also we need to understand that from our materialistic eyes and point of view, we can never understand the Rasa Leela. The Rasa Leela cannot be compared to anything of this world. It is completely spiritual, completely spiritual. You know, and the explanation and the analogy that can be used here is, it's almost like a child who is playing with his reflection in the mirror. Because the gopis are expansions of Krishna. They are non-different to Krishna. So, you know, like would somebody think, you know, why is a child playing with his reflection? You wouldn't give second thought to it. So same way when Krishna is dancing with the gopis, they are just expansions of Krishna. They are non-different to Krishna, you see. So anyway, so the first reason why he does this sometimes goes against dharma is to please his devotees. And then the next reason is to show his supremacy. Because when he comes to this material world in this as a human form, then, you know, the Mama Mudha, the Mudhas, you see, they think of him as just a normal person. As it says in verse 9.11, Avajananti Mamuda Manushim Tanum Ashritim Param Bhavam Ajananto Mama Bhuta Maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. Now, what's being said here and what's being shown actually, and why Krishna does these things, all his activities where he's killing these various asuras, where he's lifting the Govardhan mountain, you know, he goes into the mouth of this, you know, this snake, and he comes out obviously, and, you know, this so many different pastimes where he's killing so many different asuras. He swallows a whole fire, you know, forest fire. He performs all these activities to show that he is not just a normal human being. Although he has come in a human form, he is still the supreme personality of Godhead. And that is why we cannot compare our activities to his activities. And Prabhupada in the purport is talking about how we cannot imitate. He says we cannot imitate the Lord by lifting Govardhan hill as the Lord did in his childhood. We cannot imitate the Lord's activities. We cannot swallow a forest fire. We cannot kill all these huge asuras. So although the Lord has descended in a human form, we have to realize that he is not the same as me. He is always the supreme. Even though he is in this material platform, the material modes of material nature cannot touch him. He always remains the supreme, and that is why we cannot imitate him. All that we can do is follow his teachings, follow what he is trying to follow, his guidance, but not imitate him, right? So Krishna is, there's another name for Krishna, which is Ashamurdhva. Ashama means no equal to you, and Urdhava means nobody is greater than you. So we have to remember that yes, he may appear in a human form like a little baby who's completely dependent on Mother Yashoda for when he's hungry. He cries when he wants milk. He cries when she does not give the milk. He gets angry, you know, and he's so dependent on Mother Yashoda for all his needs, but he is not equal to us. And there is nobody that is greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? So that is what we're trying to bring out over here is that we should not imitate. We cannot imitate. We cannot imitate Krishna, and we cannot imitate the various Ishvaras. Now, we all know the term Ishvar. Ishvar meaning, you know, controller. We also are controllers of some small things, you know, a controller of maybe our house or maybe the children, at least when they are young, not anymore. But, you know, so we can control some bits. But we cannot imitate or think of ourselves as the demigods who are controlling the movement of the sun and the moon and whatever else. We cannot imitate that. And obviously we cannot imitate, you know, Krishna. We've just discussed that. And in the purport, Prabhupada is talking about Lord Shiva, how Lord Shiva drank the poison, the entire ocean, the poison, and he didn't swallow it, he just held it in his throat. And Prabhupada explains that if any normal human being will have even a drop of it, then he will certainly die. You know, so we cannot imitate the activities of Krishna. And a very wonderful analogy is given over here. The analogy of the fire and the sun. When we throw garbage into the fire, does the fire get contaminated? Does anything happen to the fire? The fire will just burn away the garbage. Nothing happens to the fire. The fire still remains in the state that it is in. Likewise, when the sun is evaporating water, it evaporates water from all kinds of places, pure water, unclean water, places which we won't even talk about. But does that in any way affect the sun? The sun still remains completely pure. So Krishna and the Ishwaras are on that level where, when they do some such things, it will not affect them. But we cannot think of doing those things. So Prabhupada in the purport says, I'll just read this. There are many pseudo devotees of Lord Shiva who want to indulge in smoking ganja and similar intoxicating drugs, forgetting that by so imitating the acts of Lord Shiva, they are calling death very near. We cannot do the things what Lord Shiva is doing because we are not at that level. Same way, a lot of pseudo devotees, especially in India, all that they want to do, they claim themselves to be Krishna. I am God. I am the next incarnation of Krishna. And then all that they want to do is perform Rasa Leela. We have a lot of such pseudo devotees in India who do these kind of things. Why is it that nobody ever, claims to say that, okay, I will lift the Govardhan hill? And Prabhupada always says that anybody who claims to be Krishna and says that, I am Krishna, the first question you ask him is, first of all, okay, show me your universal form and can you lift the Govardhan hill? But the problem is that people are so, either they are naive or they just want everything easy. So they are so willingly able to accept all such people as, let me just stop sharing the screen. As Krishna without even thinking about it, how can you accept a normal human being as Krishna? There are tests. The scriptures are telling us, that there are tests. Can he lift the Govardhan hill? If he says he can perform the Rasa Leela, can he actually also, why is it that you can take one aspect of Krishna and not the other aspect? But like Prabhupada says, it's a world of cheaters and the cheated. People get cheated because they want to get cheated. Otherwise, we have got the scriptures where everything is very, very clearly explained. So anyways, constantly in the purport, Prabhupada is talking about how Krishna is, yes, he is performing all his prescribed duties so that, a common man will follow him. But we cannot imitate the activities of the demigods or of Krishna. So there is this word in Sanskrit, it says there's Anukaran and Anusharan. Anukaran means to imitate and Anusharan means to follow. So we cannot do Anukaran, but we should do Anusharan, is what Prabhupada is saying, that great men perform their prescribed duties, although they don't need to. Krishna doesn't need to perform any of his duties. And in yesterday's class, I know Mukundari Prabhu got out these lovely verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was describing the daily life of Krishna, where he followed all the rules and regulations. He woke up in the Brahma Muhurat, he purified himself, he chanted his prayers, he did all of those activities which a normal grihast is expected to do. So all of this is being spoken by Krishna, so that a common man understands that we have to follow and perform all our prescribed duties, follow in the footsteps of these great people, great men, and the great Lord, and perform our prescribed duties, obviously not imitating him, but we have to perform our prescribed duties. Even if we reach a stage where we are completely self-realized, we still have a responsibility towards the other people, because there are people who are looking upon us, who might learn from us. And so as an example, we still continue to perform our duties. So in short, this is what we take from this verse. So I'll stop here now for any questions or comments or corrections. No questions, no comments? Everybody satisfied with this verse? Okay, so there is a question here. On the point on Rasa Leela in India, you mentioned, Mataji, I saw people dancing obscenely here in UK, also in the name of ISKCON. Any thoughts on ISKCON focusing on Westerners, which may bring in some point from this part of the world, like alcohol, drugs, etc.? Prabhuji, Prabhuji or whoever this, it says RK, so I'm not sure, but yeah. As far as I am aware, when we have our programs in the temples, I'm not sure if you've come to the temple, but when we have our programs in the temples, I have not seen any obscene dancing, because obviously the Prabhujis, the men are on one side and the females are on another side. Yes, there is a lot of outreach programs which is going on where we are trying to attract the Western audience. And one thing that we have to understand before we kind of, say things is that the Western culture is different. And for the Western culture to come to this level of understanding what the Vedic culture is, it will take time. So we cannot literally just go in and say, right, this is wrong, this is right, this is how you're going to do it, because then there will be no acceptability. So we need to, give them these teachings of Krishna consciousness, but it has to be slow and steady. You cannot one day just say, from tomorrow, you're going to stop doing this, because that's not going to work. That's not going to work. So yes, we are focusing completely on Krishna consciousness. We have a lot of outreach programs for the Western community. Sometimes the approach may be slightly different, and the philosophy may not be presented as strongly, because we cannot do that. And Prabhupada always said, time, place, and circumstance. When Prabhupada came to preach to the Westerners, of course, he did not dilute his philosophy at all, and ISKCON does not do that at all, but it takes time to come to that stage. It takes time. I hope that kind of satisfies you. Thank you. Thank you. Any other question or comment? Okay. If there are no questions, then we will end the session here. Thank you, all of you, for joining. Vancha kalpatrubhascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo ananta koti vaishnav vrinda ki jai.
Thank you,
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Leeladhar Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Joli Mataji. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful as usual.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you for the wonderful class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Nana
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.